So, why do we stay stuck even when we want change? I think almost everyone has experienced this at some point in their life. We say we want to make a change, we want to exercise more, we want to leave a relationship, we want to apply for a new job, we want to set boundaries, maybe we want to start therapy. But months and sometimes even years can go by and nothing changes. And why is that? One of the hardest things about change is that we often want two different things at the same time. So you may want health, but you want comfort. You may want a healthier relationship, but you might also want certainty. You might want a new job, but you also want security. You might want healing, but you also might want familiarity. The one thing you might notice in all of those examples is there is a little bit of risk and discomfort involved in making a change. So sometimes, even when we're in a situation where we want to make a change, the situation we're already in at least is familiar and predictable. And making those changes comes with some risk, comes with some fears, comes with some worries about failure. So it's understandable that sometimes it might be difficult to actually put the plan in motion that's going to lead you to something that feels uncertain. I think sometimes we assume that if somebody really wanted something badly enough, they would just do it. But the reality is that human behavior isn't that simple. Sometimes we see people in our life who are not in a healthy relationship or they're in a job that they complain about relentlessly. And we just think, oh my gosh, why don't they just do something? They're clearly not happy. But it's not as simple as it sounds because going through the process of change is often more energy and more unknown than somebody may actually be prepared to deal with. They almost prefer to stay in the miserable job or the bad relationship than face the uncertainty of what if or what things look like if I do make a change. So part of my work as a therapist, and I think what a lot of us in therapy believe is that we often have competing parts. So we might have one part of us that really authentically, genuinely wants to make this change. And we have another part that is afraid, that wants to choose safety, familiarity, is just not ready to go into that uncertainty. So even when a situation isn't making us happy, it's familiar and we know what to expect. So the unknowns often feel riskier than staying where we are. So, an important part on that is this isn't about motivation or being lazy or lacking any kind of commitment. Sometimes people might say things like, well, I guess they don't really want it that badly if they're not willing to make any changes. So, that's simply not true. Sometimes our brain and our nervous system is constantly working to protect us from things. And, that's where anxiety comes from. Sometimes our body and our brain is so worried about the future and what could be and what if we make a mistake? What if we get into another bad relationship? That it can look like avoidance or it can look like procrastination or second guessing ourselves. But really, it's often about understanding why we're reluctant to make those changes and understanding that there are parts of ourselves. We have to work with all of those parts of ourselves in order to kind of figure out what is the right path or plan of action. It's not just about doing it. Um, so the question we might better ask ourselves isn't why can't I change? Maybe the question we really should be asking is what part of me is afraid of making this change? And that's such a more compassionate place to begin with anyway, because understanding ourselves is the first step towards changing. Nobody just changes. Nobody just wakes up and says, okay, I'm going to make this change tomorrow and it's going to be long term, long lasting, and successful. Most of us, all of us who have contemplated making a major change in our life, have spent some time thinking about it, have spent some time wondering about it, have spent some time worrying about it. So if you're feeling like you're stuck in a situation where you want change, but you just can't seem to find it, before you beat yourself up for not feeling strong enough or motivated enough or questioning whether you really want it, I want you to dig a little bit deeper and find the part of yourself that might hold some of these fears and worries and stay with that part and listen to the worries because some of them are legitimate. If I go looking for another job, how do I know that that job is going to be better? What if that job is worse? That's a really fair and legitimate question to be asking. It doesn't mean we shouldn't make the choice to make the change. But I think what we're talking about here is human behavior, understanding ourselves in that context. understanding other people in that context, and being able to recognize that there are many parts of ourselves that hold on to different experiences, different emotions, and different beliefs. And sometimes getting through that is going to help us make those changes. And it's another reason why I think sometimes therapy can be useful for people to not get the decision, not have somebody else tell them what to do, but to slow things down long enough and understand all those parts and all those worries and all those fears and how we can work with them to get you to the changes that you want.